Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, Strawberry now. Um, I decided to go live for like all the people who might be waiting for the stream. Because you know that there were a couple people before that were waiting for those streams, and I was like nowhere to be seen because I was waiting for like now I'm waiting for my coffee to finish making, and my hair is my hair is still fucking wet, so I wanted to wait for it to dry out, but I decided, fuck it, I will just first begin the stream to show people that yeah, the stream is happening and my mic seems to be working normally. Um, Weird that chat is my chat on OBS is bugging as hell. Kinda, yeah. It's very weird. Like at this point, I think I'm a little bit getting used to the throat pain, so it doesn't bother me as much. But it's still definitely there. Like I do not feel like healthy, and it's fucked up because I think I have to wait 2 more months for my fucking visit in the hospital. I had a crazy long wait time to get it checked out. Like I could go privately, but that will cost money, and like there's like all that other stuff going on. So I'm kinda sick, kinda getting used to it, maybe getting better. I have no fucking idea what's going on. Like it hasn't been very cumbersome anymore, so I decided to, stream something. Yeah, that is pretty bad. Um so I decided to stream something because like I said, it's not that bad anymore, and I again ran out of content, and I was about to record some reactions, and I was like, you know what, I will just boot up a stream because that's better, because it's kind of an extra video for the channel, at least in YouTube's eyes. Like starting a broadcast always boosts fucking everything on my channel for some reason. So and I get to talk to you good people. I think my coffee stopped brewing, so I'll go grab it and come right back here. And I'm back. Let me refresh the chat and see. So yeah, I have my coffee, I have my chat set up and everything. And I need to move my green screen, I guess. I'll be right back. Okay, that should be good, right? Yeah. Now if the wind blows a little, you don't get to see like all of that side. Well, I have a plenty of space. Yeah, here. Nice. So yeah, lots of stuff happened. I've been pretty busy with some things. Could say IRL. So I haven't had much time to like record the new stuff or start a stream. And like, yeah, I also decided, fuck it, I'm just not gonna wait for the throat to get better. Like there are days when it's completely fine, and there are days where it's still a little bit there. I'm just happy that when I wake up, it doesn't hurt anymore as badly. I have no fucking idea what's going on with it. The doctor also doesn't know. Like my normal like house doctor didn't know what the fuck is happening. Like he just saw that I have some red on my throat, so he knows there is irritation, and he forwarded me to a specialist. And yeah, that specialist has a ridiculous fucking wait time. So, and yeah, the wait time was full 3 months. And now I am down to 1 month, I think, because it's at the end of it's at the end of June, so pretty much 2 months from now. Still very weird. Never had anything like this. I even like infected my girlfriend for a little bit, and she got better like in a week, and I'm still like with this. I have no clue. Anyway, moving on to some stuff that I find way more interesting than my annoying ass throat. Um, yeah, we have some reactions to do. I rearranged this, like Fallout 2 for bad people what was on this list for a little while now. Not even mentioning like those, all of those at the bottom here. Uh, but I rearranged it so I need to see this Amnesia, A Machine for Pigs review by Mandalore. Like I have been putting it back for a while, and I decided, you know what, fuck it, I just wanna see it, and then just to threw in a Bricky review for some variety, and Mandalore like 4 days ago he released another review of Time Shift, a game I'm pretty sure I know at least from the name, but I don't think I played it. And like hopefully I get through at least these three, maybe those four reviews, and for the next stream I will have this a little bit rearranged again, probably. Like from everything I seen on the channel, Mandalore is just, and obviously Seth seen touch, but I pretty much seen all of Seth's videos by now. Um, but like Mandalore is so popular compared to anything else I react to. So, and I like watching his reviews. His reviews are so quality. Uh, so I tend to focus. So I tend to focus on him a little bit. Timeshift was the game I always saw demos of and never played. I think I like was in a similar situation. For sure, it's an older game, right? Because I really know this name from back in the day, and I think I saw it like maybe in gaming magazines or something. Uh, so yeah, I also know this one. Robot Quest. I played the demo of this. This is a pretty new game, and it was pretty fucking fun. Um, like a less known indie. Uh, Less known indie game that was promoted during one of those Steam Fests. It's pretty fun. And Amnesia, Machine for Pigs. Oh my god, uh, the fucking ads went crazy for some reason. Amnesia, the Machine for Pigs is a game I heard so much about from my friend who is like really into Amnesia, and every time he gets a chance, he shits on it so much. If you're looking for another channel whose reactions do well, as in people reacting to their stuff do well, then Reggie has some good stuff, but his humor is similar to Seth's for better and worse. Who is Reggie? I don't think I know that channel. Reggie in particular did a video on Shadows of Doubt I thought was great. He's also done others on Total War Warhammer. His videos on elderly in the game there was good. What the hell? It's just called Reggie. Oh, okay. Shadows of Doubt, Reggie. It's actually crazy to it's actually a crazy to hear like a YouTuber's name and not know him. Because usually when people come to me with recommendations like Ross's Game Dungeon, right? Like Accursed Farms was a channel I knew from Freeman's Mind, and I saw that he does Ross's Game Dungeon. I just never like looked into it. but like every channel and MandaloreGaming obviously was recommended to me also when back when I was reacting to Scythe. But I always knew those names. Reggie is completely new to me. Oh hey, he did like a Kenshi thing too. Nice. Nice. I think I will oh, he does a lot of he does a lot of stuff in Total War Warhammer, I see. At least a lot of his popular stuff is some Rimworld, Kenshi. Nice. Nice. Oh my god. I will just add some I will add some of these recommendations uh just so I can remember the names. Rabix Raptor is another good channel to do reactions of. Arma SCP? What the fuck is Arma SCP? That's crazy. Oh man, I forgot Arma exists. Rubik's Raptor seems to do a lot of Arma. I will just pick some video and save to watch later to remember the to remember the channel names and then like look for something specific. Holy fuck, like just looking at the dude's channel reminded me that Arma has the craziest fucking modding scene that has ever been conceived ever. Like Jesus Christ, how many like mods for that game are out there? Oh fuck. I need to settle this somewhere. Oh, I'll just put it here. It's funny for how some Arma mods like outgrew that game in popularity. I remember like Daisy is the best example of that. Daisy was so huge back in the day, and like people got Arma only to play that fucking mod. They never played the game it's based on. It was so funny. Reggie slipped under my radar for a long while too, but those videos I liked. Barrow Trauma, Shadows of Doubt, Elder Warhammer, and Barrow Trauma were all great. Yeah, I will just dig in there and see like what, because I need like at bare minimum have like something to say about the videos, so I'll just pick something that piques my interest, I guess. But anyway, for now, we are coming back to Amnesia Machine for Pigs review by MandaloreGaming, which, like I said, my friend who is very big into Amnesia, like he played all of the games, gotten all of the achievements in all of the games. He had some pretty harsh words about this entry into the franchise, so I always assumed it's pretty fucking bad. Um, and I think like I saw some cliff notes for this video, and like Mandalore has a list of games he's recording, editing, and playing at the moment. And I saw in his notes I don't think like Mandalore was too pleased with this game too, so yeah, let's get in there and see what happens. This game I have never touched. I am planning to like do a playthrough of all of Amnesia's on my own, or like sometime in the future, or either on my own or on stream. Doesn't really matter. But I don't think I mind getting spoiled for this particular game because, like, I heard it's not great. Okay. Mandalore will do a good job explaining it, but the gist is that the gameplay was really bad, story was divisive, ending was pretty cool though. I think like I might be pulling something out of my ass, but I think Machine for Pigs had like way less actual monster encounters. If I remember like one of my friends' rants correctly. And like it was more puzzly, even though the puzzles were also not great.
After Amnesia: The Dark Descent's Gothic, Lovecraftian castle in Prussia, setting it in London was seen as the only way to top the horror. But this sequel wasn't being developed by Frictional, it was being developed by the Chinese Room. They had created some mods, but at this point were mainly known for their single game, Dear Esther.
I just wanna say
was seen as the only way to top the horror. But this sequel was
this sequence in Penumbra Black Plague is one of the like coolest fucking sequences in a video game ever. Like this shit is straight out of Silent Hill. This is like if Hideo Kojima got to make his Silent Hills and you got to experience the other world in first person. Penumbra Black Plague was such a cool fucking horror game. I will never stop glazing it with all my might.
Wasn't being developed by Frictional, it was being developed by the Chinese Room. They had created some mods, but at this point were mainly known for their single game, Dear Esther. If you don't know it, it wasn't the first of its kind, but it is the game that people invented the term walking simulator for.
Yeah, I was about to say that's the only thing I know about Dear Esther. I never touched it.
It's a mainly linear game where you just walk around an island and get a narrative delivered to you. So from the outside, them doing the Amnesia sequel seemed kind of weird. Detractors said the Dark Descent barely had gameplay anyways, which isn't true. But there was a sentiment of, hey, at least the graphics will probably be great. Well, some predictions were way more correct than others. And after I played this one, I played no Amnesia titles after it. So coming back has been interesting for me because I did find more to appreciate, and I found more recognizable reasons why the game is scuffed. But I'll take it from the top before getting into all of that. A great starting example is the main menu. Dark Descent
it's crazy how like a bad game in a franchise can stop all of your momentum in it. Like I played the last Silent Hill I played was the first one made by not the original dev team, and I immediately abandoned. Like I was so dead set on playing even the shittiest Silent Hill games just to experience the entire franchise. And as soon as I played what the fuck is it? Homecoming. As soon as I played Silent Hill Homecoming, the first Silent Hill made by a non-Japanese studio, I immediately abandoned that idea because holy shit, it was so bad.
Had ambient, low-pitched droning. It's an ominous, prepare to be scared sound. Machine for Pigs starts with the exact same sound, but then it moves into something more grand. The theme itself is saying this will be bigger in scope. What is the machine and what is it for? It doesn't work great for me because it reminds me of Alien Resurrection. Don't get me wrong, that is a fun movie near and dear to me. but it's still the most
That is kind of similar.
immediate tone shift. As for the intro itself, there's a quote about how making a beast of oneself removes the
Yeah, it was Homecoming. I really wanted to play Downpour too, but after Homecoming, I don't have the strength left. I will come back for it at some point because, I mean, it is the last like real Silent Hill game, and that is so far, I guess. And that is even if Downpour like sucks, it has that honor in a way, and I really want to see it for myself.
pain of being human. I hope you're ready for lots of pig metaphors because holy shit. We open with some kind of machine activating, but it's so obscured in red fog that it almost looks like a graphical bug is happening. It gets better when the room is properly illuminated, but what this machine is could have just been a nightmare. You've awakened inside of your caged bed just in time for the title drop. Like Penumbra and Amnesia before it, it's a first-person game with plenty of interactable... Oh. There's actually precious few things that you can interact with this round. I'm gonna have more to say on this in a little bit. You play as Oswald Mandus.
Oh man, it's a little bit fucking dark. Quite a bit darker than quite a bit darker than Dark Descent, which is fucking funny. Let me actually adjust the brightness of my monitor because it might be just my room. Oh yeah, I know Downpour is Downpour is also like a bad, not even a bad Silent Hill game, just a bad game. But you know, I find the story of Silent Hill as a franchise so fucking mystifying that I need to experience it whole, not just some video essay or anything. I need to feel the pain in my bones, and like Homecoming was definitely the right first strike to the head with a fucking sledgehammer. Like coming off of 1, 2, 3, and then I didn't like 4. I think Silent Hill 4 is really mid, but it had so like the first 30 minutes are the best like Silent Hill sequence ever, pretty much, and then like going straight to Homecoming was holy fuck, just end it, man. It's suffering. It's like on the floor having a spasm. You don't recognize that franchise, like going from 4 to Homecoming. I think there was a Origins in between that, but nobody cares about Origins. The big metaphors and puns in this game are unreal. There's a ridiculous one so bad Mandalore didn't even realize it was a pun.
Head of a meatpacking company in 1899. He's had feverish nightmares of the machine and sometimes a man in a fursuit, but now his children are missing. It'll be tricky to find them because Mandus' estate is large, but also bizarre. It's lavish, but to the point where the number of paintings on display is excessive, even for then. And the subject matter can be strange or about pigs. But it's definitely the secret passages and caged beds and pervert one-way mirrors that seem the most alarming. The mansion also has direct access to the Mandus meatpacking factory, so it's possible his twin boys are lost somewhere down there. To make matters worse, while Mandus was sleeping, the machinery was sabotaged, which might have been the sound that gave him the nightmares. This is reported by Mandus' chief engineer, who believes that his children are trapped somewhere down below, along with giving other useful tidbits of information. Moshi Moshi.
Precious eagle cactus fruit. Help us.
Fantastic. On the way to find your twins, you'll be shadowed by pig masks and pursued by pig men. But for a game following up a lot of famous chase scenes, there aren't going to be as many as you think. So that's the quick rundown, but we have to address the graphics. The issue is, the game has some great art direction. Between Mandus's eccentric estate, the dirty streets of London, a strange church, and the impossible size and scope of the machinery, there is fantastic stuff here, but it's a problem when you can't fucking see it 90% of the time. And it goes way beyond just being a Gamma Game Too Dark issue. The first game had that right in the title, and there were some areas where your lantern was the only thing guiding you along.
Okay, I am glad this is not all in my head or like the sun shining in my fucking monitor, because like I picked it up right away and I was like, why the fuck is everything so dark? Like he's in a kind of a well lit room for that one scene when I paused before, and everything was so dark. Okay, it's just the game being piece of garbage, I guess.
But even areas that on paper could be pitch black like a cellar could have some lighting to them. Pitch darkness would still let you see directly in front of you, or give you other help you might not have noticed. Darkness would drain your sanity and warp your vision, and light would help restore that, but light gave you way to monsters more easily. Light wasn't just set dressing, it was a major mechanic that areas were designed around. Rooms were lit to set a tone, so they still had to account for danger. How hard will it be to sneak through an area unspotted, but also, how hard will it be for the player to see the monster? The truth is, Amnesia was submarine warfare. You can see farther at the cost from being spotted from farther. So when an area was well lit, that wasn't necessarily welcome because you had less places to hide. And the same went for the very open areas, so Amnesia liked to combine both. In Machine for Pigs, you have a light with unlimited power. You don't have fuel or oil, you don't have an inventory, and there is no sanity system at all. People have already criticized this for, dumbing down the mechanics, and there's a lot to that too, but I think people have missed just how much this approach torpedoed the look of the game, because the Dark Descent's fantastic lighting was made with your limitations in mind. Someone can run out of light, so they should be able to still navigate around and complete challenges. It might be awful, but it's doable. With that in mind, here's what Machine for Pigs does when it takes that away. This room is dark, this room is dark, this room is dark. What do you mean you can't see? Just pull out your light. It might look murky and compressed and horrible like you're playing the game through OnLive in 2007, but you can always see in front of you, kind of. But get this, the first game had all kinds of insanity vision effects, and that is still more clear than just walking around in Machine for Pigs. The game constantly has this horrible tinted fog to it, which is incredibly visible even in small spaces, where once you could look way down a long hallway.
That sucks.
Now the draw distance is unbelievably bad. Reminds me of Morrowind, except it actually is worse here. It's like the fog and tinting is the only real light, and the actual light bulbs you see barely emit anything at all. And not every light source is like this, even if the room is still murky. But when I go through settings and look at Let's Plays and look at the console version to make sure something's not broken, that's not a great sign. It's not just exploring around either, because it makes the set pieces boring as hell too. You find a strange chemical centrifuge and it's sitting in darkness. Turn on your light, and there it is. Areas that could have dramatic lighting either don't bother at all, or they attempt it and it's drowned out by the other effects. And no, this round I don't think it's supposed to look bad as some kind of art piece. If you hack out the fog, you can see a lot of assets loading in, so it might have been optimization gone wrong. At least in some cases, because so much more of it would have to be by design. A light barely affecting the environment is one thing, but an area having none at all, like even fixtures, is another entirely. It really sucks because there are moments where that works in the game's favor. When you're deep into a near pitch black factory and can only catch glimpses of the machinery with your light, it's a striking image that does feel like something from a nightmare. But it doesn't stand out as much as it could because the rest of the game isn't too far off. And the final killing blow is what they did to your lantern.
I'm over here stroking my dick. I got lotion on my...
So I won't explain too far ahead, but for
a second, I thought that's actually gonna be like from an in-game dialogue about something important. Well, he fucking got me.
For lore reasons, the man-pigs affect electricity, which means a fixture flickering could just be a malfunction, or a human is around and a little piggy is coming to murk it, which means if a man-pig is around, your lantern starts flickering. It has unlimited fuel, so there's no chance of it actually going out, so what they've done is given you a spooky detector. The best scare with it is early on because it's a narrow staircase with no way around it. It's a scripted scare, but they put thought into framing it. But out in the wild, it only means your light flickers if something scary is nearby, even if you're not looking directly at it. This kind of thing could work for tension in the right circumstances, but again, it's Machine for Pigs. And the mechanical streamlining extends into how easily detected you are. For now, let's just say these hogs aren't going to find truffles anytime soon. It ruins what could be great sequences too, like going through a dark area but you're not sure how close the man-pig is, and then your lantern starts flickering. And you can't have a moment where you lose your light dynamically based on how you played. Putting together long stretches of murky darkness and then flickering lights when something scary happens
How the fuck did they have so many bad ideas for a one game? Like, you would think a sequel to Amnesia would be a slam dunk. Just do Amnesia, but a different story. You know, with the mechanics from Amnesia, like the sanity, health, resource management, and no like funky flicking fucking lantern.
makes the horror feel cheaper in a way that the first game did not. I mean, it's basically the SpongeBob Nosferatu bit. And it's not all like this, there are moments that are fantastic. Like exploring an office and suddenly getting a glimpse of something inhuman driving past you, which gives you a nice uncertain did I see that correctly moment instead of a flashlight confirming it. There's a part where some machinery violently shifts and you see a man-pig run by. The lights flicker here, so you only see it for a bit through some machinery, but the sound is so loud that you don't know where it ran off to. That sound gives it uncertainty, and that's what gives you tension. Stripping out elements that you had to manage makes you more certain and less scared. Machine for Pigs exchanged a lot of the moment-to-moment tension in exchange for something else. It's relying more on its writing and concepts, which are strong, along with having set-piece sequences or scary things you can stare at as long as you want. But you can have all of those things with a tense game, and they've lost a lot of that. The game's sound is in another interesting area like that. The ambient audio and sound effects are still pretty incredible. Of all the elements that neuter the tension, sound is not one of them.
Because they never worked with anything like this, this is why devs get vetted before they work with products now. Kinda true, you know. Kinda true. It is weird how the devs of Amnesia would actually give away their baby to another dev. It kinda reminds me of that fucking Konami situation with Silent Hill, actually. Like, you have the golden fucking egg in your hand. Or rather, you have the hen that lies the golden eggs, right? And you care for it, obviously. And you know it, right? Because it's your hen. Why would you give it to somebody else to take care of it? Like, if you know the hen the best, and like I said, it lies golden fucking eggs. It is kind of a weird collab situation, I think.
The background audio is so rich with a lot of depth and layers.
I guess they expected that every player will approach this with like. They thought that every player will approach this like very logically, right? Oh, this is not this is not like a main entry into the franchise, right? This is a spin-off made by another studio. But that's not how that fucking works when you have one game in your franchise, and especially if it's so fucking popular, because people were waiting for a sequel or a follow-up or an extension to Amnesia. Like, they were eagerly awaiting it, and this killed all of the fucking hype for like any follow-up after that. It's so silly from like the perspective of time to do this. This is like if FNAF came out and Scott Hawthorne immediately gave like rights to some indie dev who does completely different stuff to make a sequel. A very weird situation all around, I think. Handing games off to untested devs and not working on sequel to a amazing product were always bizarre. As an example, I'm always salty Eternal Darkness never had a sequel. It's like the devs are terrified of money and success. Yeah, kinda. Like, indie devs, indie devs like care a lot more about their IPs, I feel. Like when an indie dev gets a breakaway success, he starts working on a sequel and like taking all of the criticism into account, expanding on his ideas, and like these companies, they don't give a fuck. Oh yeah, I have a franchise that makes bazillions, millions of dollars, that is like extremely popular worldwide. Yeah, sure, I will hand like the keys to the fucking kingdom to the three drunk guys I found down the street in a pub. What can go wrong?
To it. And when they do go to turn it up, they turn it up hard. The actual sound design might be even better than
Yeah, I wanted to say the sound design sounds really fucking great though.
before. It can just be harder to appreciate because it's not used as effectively. When you're hearing pig-human hybrids crashing through the factory, knocking God knows what over, those can be the actual tensest moments in the game, even when the danger has never been farther. It's such a huge missed opportunity for this kind of work. There's not a lot of background music during the game, and it's not used like the Dark Descent either, but the ones that do play during cutscenes and set pieces are very good. They are attached to some big story moments too, so I can't show them just yet. But the larger scale that the title screen hinted at is definitely delivered on. As for the voice acting, it's excellent, which is fantastic when the game's cast is this small. The delivery is always perfectly as cruel or maniacal or as dismissive as it needs to be. There may not be that many characters, but there's not a moment where a line falls flat. Except for the kids, but luckily they don't have that much.
Come and see, Papa. We found an egg. A stone egg.
And even that's not horrible.
You seem to have undergone quite a profound conversion in Mexico, Mr. Mandaloore.
You could not have seen it yourself and not, Professor. As we disembarked, even through my fever, I saw the detritus of this so-called progress. I saw starvation and disease, rot and destruction polluting the waters of the Empire. We are ruiners, you and I, and all of us, and we make the world unclean.
I have such visions to share with thee. If my jaw be unshackled and you harvest the crust from my eyes.
My one complaint here is that the audio mixing can be very
Yeah, that's some solid ass voice acting. Just wanted to say. Getting back to this, it's a shame that all the scares are pretty much just paper tigers. They look scary but have no substance. Oh, that kinda sucks. Those bits from this radio thing kinda remind me of like Alan Wake and how his alter ego, Mr. Scratch, talks to him. Like it sounds like an insane rambling, but in like that very profound way, as it was coming from like a person who picks their words very very carefully.
inconsistent. Background noise can drown out lines, and when Mandus is speaking, he sounds too quiet and far away.
Beast! Creature! Where are my children? Where are my children?
And that's a problem when you can't adjust sound levels at all. So presentation-wise, it all comes together to be a weird mix of stuff. The visuals are usually murky and awful, but sometimes you see something striking. There's incredible sound design, but the game rarely takes advantage of it. The horror can be existential and high concept, but they also want to flicker the lights and make the room scary. They try to go for pig mask jump scares.
Huh? Nah. Are you fucking kidding?
I honestly don't know what to say to that. Having the masks follow you around, sometimes subtly appearing and disappearing, is one thing, but genuinely attempting jump scares with them comes across as desperate. So now's a perfect time to get into the mechanics, or really, the lack of them. I think what bothers me most about the gameplay is it's exactly what people will say the Dark Descent is if they haven't played it. I've already talked about how removing limited light and fuel has utterly changed the look and feel of the game, but there's more to it than that. Because you've got no inventory, and so no healing potions, if you take damage, you regenerate it right back. Even dying is difficult to achieve as big holes have guardrails everywhere, and even the monsters don't usually kill you, they just knock you out. And the monster encounters barely account for anything. Where the chases in previous games could cross all kinds of rooms and hallways, the ones here can be unbelievably small and closed off. And even having that, their AI seems dumber and has more limited senses. In the areas where you're supposed to sneak around, I had to go out of my way to be chased by them. I'll show you how dire it is, but I must warn you, this clip will contain pigs, so I hope you're ready. If I didn't stand directly in front of him and stay there, he would not fucking chase me. I thought the whole thing with pigs was that they were kind of smart.
Bro, at that point, just remove like chases from your game entirely, because this actually takes away all the tension. Like, holy fuck. That's so stupid.
He chases me a few steps, but I can easily outrun him, so I have to stand there for him to kill me. With that advantage, it still takes him multiple hits to drop me down. Okay, there, he finally killed me. Except he didn't kill me, he knocked me out and put me in this pig cage. I can actually see him walking away, so let me go try to get murdered again. Except no, I can't, because he's actively running away from me. Come back, you greasy fuck. See, what happened is I left his special chase zone, which is about 10 feet across. And I have to chase him all the way back before he goes after me again. And it's not like I was boundary breaking or something crazy, this is where the game put me. They knew exactly where I would be, but did not count on me getting right back out. Because what they hoped for was that you would come into this room, see the pig, and go, ah, and then run out the door over here. With how cramped the room is and the calendar length time to kill, you practically have to try to die, and if you're someone who doesn't and does die, they're going to have the monster go right back to where he was. It's either assuming that any player who dies there won't be able to handle a chase, or it was never taken into account that that person would run right back out. The man-pig is well animated and scary, but he's the illusion of any real threat here. Speaking of which, there's another section where you're trapped in a hallway with one that dashes at you, and it just vanishes. This could happen in the first game if your sanity was low enough, but it would only be for about half a second, and it was dynamic. But get this, if you don't just stand there and run away, the door will automatically slam behind you and it pounds on it like you just escaped in time. How about this part? It looks like if you don't finish this task in time, the pigs will make you go wee 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 all the way home. You even get a journal entry that says, I must escape, and we know these monsters can break down doors. Right? Let's spend big and call that bet. I guess not. To give a final example, the water monster. It is fairly famous, but I didn't mention it in the previous video. I figure that even if people watch through spoilers and all that, there should be things in the game that still surprise them that I don't bring up. Well, now's the time to address the water monster. It's some kind of creature from the mysterious dimension that Alexander comes from. You avoid it by platforming and throwing things to distract it, particularly human limbs. You can even throw a few in the water so it has a stupid mukbang as you make your escape. You never learn much more about it beyond it being a vicious, feral creature, and you need to be quick, careful, and have good timing to escape it. Machine for Pigs introduces it with the exact same musical sting, but it's a little more electrical this time. It only blocks your way until you drain it out, but at one point you do fall into the water with it. And I know sometimes people will say a linear section can feel like it's on rails, but this is almost literally on rails. It feels like I wanted to go bowling and someone put up the bumper guards. So even though it guides me right to the exit, let me be a human houseplant and sit here and die. Except I don't, it puts me right at the exit. If I crawl down to die again, it puts me in an area right by this. Aren't they supposed to be ravenous carnivores? Well, they're not those. Instead, according to the notes, they're invisible pigs caught between two worlds. Because
Bro, they actually wrote in invisible pigs and they thought they are fucking cooking. Ain't no way they were serious while making this.
Everything in this game is a goddamn pig. The creature helps you progress or detains you. And yeah, in the first game sometimes monsters would disappear after some deaths, but you could still lose tangible progress. It didn't Disney fast pass you ahead, and there's a hard mode option where that doesn't happen. This is just silly.
What I received I am a bit disappointed with because it's a contradiction to what I have been seeing it being portrayed as versus what I actually got.
The fact there are barely any interactable
I love Review, bruh. He's so iconic.
objects makes more sense now. You don't ever need to throw anything to fight back, there's no furniture to hide inside, and the few things you do pilfer through are purely for finding more story notes. Or, on very rare occasion, something strange like the teeth drawer. So if you have less to interact with, no inventory, and less tension from the monsters, where does that put the puzzles? Well, it mainly means carrying items around, but luckily not too far, as the puzzles are now nearly pointless. Oh, a switch is stuck. Go down the ladder, fix the hatch, and now the switch works. The problem solving is the simplest it's ever been, without the pressure of a monster shambling into the room while you do it. There are 2 or 3 that are okay, but they lack that tension. What gets to me beyond the game being so streamlined down is that it's basically wearing the skin of a better one. It says Amnesia, so people are going to expect monster encounters, and they're going to expect puzzles. The elements are there, but rarely have consequence. The easiest, most simple tasks will give you a journal entry for hints, but sometimes that same pop-up is giving you more story and insight. So the solution could be obvious, but you're always compelled to check the journal anyway. Mandus constantly writes down what he has to do in the same section where he reveals more about what's happening, which the Dark Descent separated out so much better. If you are stuck, there's an entirely separate memento section just for hints and objectives. You don't have to check every entry because "I must discover the fate of my children" is not intertwined with "I must pull this lever." It's like every gameplay element was made out of begrudging obligation, and if you somehow fail, they want you to move right past it to see their story. It feels like you're outright not trusted to play the video game, which makes sense from the creators of Dear Esther, but not from the creators of Penumbra called Frictional Games. By definition, friction is rough. It resists you. You know what friction also makes? Heat. It might also make sparks. And if you don't have heat, you're not gonna cook. That means the pork that Machine for Pigs brought to my dinner party is cold-cut Oscar Mayer. And that pork is made with chicken. This is chicken gameplay. All these years, and I finally stooped to a food analogy. That's how bad it is out here. It stripped out so much agency and uncertainty and everything that makes horror games great. I assume they did it so more people would experience it and see the story, where the story is complicated, with interesting themes and writing, and still a little bit of chicken in there, but you need to be paying close attention, explore to find notes to give more nuance to it, read every pop-up, and then examine the notes, ideally after you play, because there's a good chance you could go through the first time and still not fully understand what the hell happened. If you did, then you know there are still parts that are ambiguously real or don't have clear explanations. It gets praised for being a smart story with a lot of angles to it, and I would agree there. But I do have issues with how the story was told. Plus, in the end, it's the only thing really interesting about the game. Imagine the same story with Dark Descent gameplay or an expanded version. It could have been something spectacular, but this is what we got. I'll talk more about that in detail, so if you don't want spoilers, go to here.
It's a big ass story segment, and we're diving right into it. Because, yeah, I don't really care about this one.
The boys will be happy to see these pictures.
No, that's not right. When it comes to the story, you get most of the background details out of order. So I'm going to go over some things in a more linear context before getting into it. About a decade before the beginning of the game, Mandus' wife died giving birth to their twins. Before she passed away, he vowed he would always take care of them. Unfortunately, the next few years weren't kind to Mandus, and especially his company, which had been established for generations. Mandus was trying to modernize his business with brand new machinery, but overextended, to the point that he couldn't get a loan and the bank, those swine, might be coming to repossess his house. Naturally, he ponders about killing them all, and does it in writing. Mandus comes across as eccentric even before the death of his wife. He already had secret passages in his house that he used to watch her bathe, and was possibly the second or third best safari hunter seen on this channel. Whatever was going on with him, he wasn't shy from adventure. Along with all his paintings and trophies, he also has artifacts in display, so is likely a bit of a treasure hunter too. So through the adventuring grapevine, he heard rumors of an Aztec pyramid deep in the jungles of Mexico. Thinking the treasure within could pay his way out, he took his boys and went on the trip. Apparently, this actually worked because when Mandus came back, his luck turned around. He was able to finance and construct amazing new machinery and did so well, the factory had a surplus. He picked up some kind of illness down in Mexico, so would be frequently bedridden, but he was still a huge philanthropist now. Working with the local church, he gave countless meals to the poor, asking nothing for return. A priest notes that he won't even let them work in his factory as the machinery requires specialists and would be dangerous to them, which is damn generous by Victorian England standards. Still, while he had become a hero in society, his old close friends thought there was something off about him. So they hired Professor A to evaluate him, who had apparently also checked out the Jack the Ripper murders, which might have some tie-ins I'll get into. Anyhow, the professor is more impressed over suspicious.
I seem to have picked up something rather nasty in Mexico.
I do understand what you've been through. A lesser man would have crumbled. Yet you have made all of this. Your great factory, your charities. It is a wonder for one man alone.
It will all be made clear, Professor.
As you explore around in the search for your children, the reasons the club was worried become more obvious. Mandus rants to the professor and himself about the sickness he sees in society. While he's publicly a philanthropist and friend of high society, in secret he despises them. Their pretentiousness, their corruption, and he has big plans to fix them all. As you go through the factory, large parts of it are just a facade. There are large office spaces that are pristine with no staff and no signs of any work being done at all. The real operation and machinery appears to be deeper and deeper underground. Beyond that, symbols from Brennenburg Castle and the Dark Descent begin reappearing. In fact, some of those artifacts that Mandus has also look familiar. A strange symbol on an altar deep in Alexander's chambers is also on a grave in a nearby church courtyard. Mandus mentions how London engineers find tunnels and ancient structures beneath the city, and his architect tells him there's an iron ball at the center of the planet and calls it the egg of the world. This architect is the same engineer that calls up and is someone Mandus met on his expedition in Mexico. He's been helping Mandus design and build the great machinery, but if the surface level is fake, what the hell is it for? And most pressing of all, why is the factory full of man-pigs? Well, during the Mexican vacation, Mandus's kids found something they described as being a stone egg. Apparently it had some kind of way of speaking to Mandus, and when he got home he placed it on his mantelpiece, along with burying some shattered skulls in his garden. With our Dark Descent connections, this egg in a temple was likely another orb, or at least a piece of one. But when Daniel took the orb, he was hunted by the Shadow, so why isn't that happening to Mandus? It's possible that he could be. The pig masks that keep following Mandus around look like they could be decorated in a Central American style, except pigs didn't arrive in the New World until Cortez came to get real busy. So Aztecs weren't seeing pigs until their doom was upon them. It could be something Mandus saw in Mexico, but what's the most telling is the top of the mask has a depiction that looks like the orb. It's right over the brain too, implying that the orb had influence over them instead of hunting them. It's around a lot, but I don't think it's the Shadow, and even if it is, it's not like the one in the first game. I see it more as a metaphor for Mandus feeling haunted and not hunted. Plus, it's the kind of thing I would expect more from the Dear Esther team. Now, I'm not an expert on Aztecs. I only had a brief Aztec death whistle musical career. So I won't get super in depth, but there are some threads to pull at, including the first call from the engineer.
Precious eagle cactus fruit.
Aztecs had a colorful view of agriculture. Human hearts were often referred to or depicted as being fruit. For example, take Mictlantecutli, the most prominent god of the dead in the underworld because, of course, the Aztecs had a few of those. He's frequently depicted carrying fruit representing a human heart. Or check out Xipe Totec, the god of agriculture. He has flayed skin because corn seeds shed a layer off as they mature, and corn itself is also a husked plant. So in short, the engineer's first line in the game is an obscure reference to Aztec human sacrifice. So what would most people make of this?
Precious eagle cactus fruit. Help us.
What?
I'm not making fun of them, that was my reaction back then too. And sure, the Aztec themes and imagery grow stronger through the game. It may be graphically rough, but they still do interesting things with the visuals at points. If you did catch it, or looked it up later, it means the engineer's first line is about sacrifice, which is a major theme of the game. Is it going too hard too fast, using a historical reference instead of a concept? Maybe. But to be fair, you're not going to see this kind of thing in a lot of horror games now. Mandus doesn't believe the Aztecs were savages because they believed that sacrifice was the only way to save themselves from destruction. And now he wonders if maybe they just didn't kill enough. Mandus believes doom is coming, and only he can save it with the help of his new friend and their wonderful machine. So how is it built, and what exactly does it do? It's finally time to address the man-pigs. Mandus already had employees, but for this kind of scale-up, he needed more. Well, through connections made through the power of the orb or family, he learned about the Brennenburg compound. an elixir that can cheat death as we've seen before, so likely Vitae. He even managed to acquire a corpse of one of Brennenberg's monsters, saying that he could smell the orb on it. And he also smells the work of his great uncle on it, meaning he's either related to Daniel or Alexander. But since they're both from London, it's probably Daniel, along with other context clues.
What? You think I speak Prussian? Do I look like an inbred hog, sir?
Prussians also make his list of things that are pigs, along with the rich and the poor, capitalism itself, everyone.
This government, they make pigs of us all.
Major societal institutions, God.
The old god is nothing more than a lamed hog.
Say it's a pig, and you're correct.
We are the pig, Professor. We are all the pig.
He may be a crazy man, but this is to a point where it gets grating. There are moments where the pig comparisons work wonderfully, and a lot more that just feel shoehorned in. I guess I can't say the game doesn't reflect his obsession with that. Anyway, by mixing Vitae with other materials, he's created Compound X. Compound X is light sensitive and affects electricity, and has a strange connection to the other dimension. Most importantly, it's what lets Mandus fuse people and pigs, though early failures were caught between two dimensions or shifted back and forth. The man-pigs are a slave race that will expand, maintain, and work the machine. The machine is being built like an organism with different sections supporting or powering the others. Like a sewage line is turning wheels and sending gases and heat into different parts of the factory. If it's operating, it's practically powering itself, with the man-pigs acting like the little blood cells inside of it. The process for creating man-pigs is cruel and surgical. One character says that they sneeze their teeth out, which scatters into the dark like mice. Again, the game's best horror is mainly in its writing, which can be flowery, but it does feel appropriate. The man-pigs will be part of the grand design.
Yeah, those concepts are so fucking strong, but if you have no gameplay to back it up, or the gameplay that backs it up makes it seem like the game doesn't respect your intelligence at all, that's a big fucking problem. Like, you cannot have bad gameplay in a fucking video game. The gameplay is the primary input of the player. I do like how the machine is described as being like a growing deity. Yeah, like an organism, a deity that like keeps maturing, kinda expanding. That's really fucking cool. But then you have that gameplay where enemies don't even see you, man. Like,
usher in the new world, but they're incredibly wretched creatures that are ultimately Mandus's victims. He wants to bring down an unfair and cruel society while inflicting the same thing onto his own people. They're dumb and childlike and barely operate above their basic instincts, which is exactly what he needs to run the machine properly. They still manage to kick each other down too, which certainly has a lot going on there thematically. As for the machine, it is industrialized human sacrifice. The meat is turned to food, Vitae is extracted and can make more pigmen. Every part of the human body is used. The first man-pigs are the poor or asylum inmates or other people that Mandus thought were dregs of society who would better serve the greater good. Institutions that he thought metaphorically made people into pigs, he has made literal. He hates the church because he believes it gives a false promise to the poor that they'll have a better life after death if they're good and compliant. The charitable church that he essentially takes over is visually surrounded by the factory. He changed the iconography to revere man-pigs in the machine, and the depths of it lead directly into that conversion process. All for the ultimate goal of sacrifice.
I am the jaguar-faced man. I am the feathered serpent. This priesthood is mine.
The doom he foresaw wasn't some kind of Lovecraftian nightmare, it was just the future, and particularly World War I, where both of his sons would die in the Somme. So he killed his sons in the steps of that temple to stop it from happening in a panic, and then came back to see if he could stop the entire thing from happening at all. This is where things can get tricky. Most of his rants are directed against high society, the government, and institutions that would get involved in the war and ultimately cause his children to die in it.
I'm not a big fan of the government.
If that's the case, why does everyone need to be fed to the machine? The game could have fallen into a trap here, but the game avoids it. Because it does have the symptoms of what I'm going to call for reference, Batman film villain syndrome. Bane wants to expose corruption, and starts a kangaroo court to punish the perpetrators, but actually he really wants to blow up the city. The Riddler wants to kill the elite corrupt, especially because they helped make his childhood extremely shitty. But actually, he wants to flood the city. Mandus wants to literally eat the rich and punish the nobility for what happens in the future, but actually he wants to sacrifice the whole city. If they kept it to where Mandus was only attacking rich people, there would be endless Mandus did nothing wrong arguments, which would at least keep the game more relevant, I guess. But instead it's him lashing out at everyone and everything in the world with strong writing to support it. Mandus believes he's a revolutionary, but his goals are incredibly self-serving, he's still exploitive while doing it, and you see these types all the time. Because he wants everyone in the machine, he has observations on all of them, and the revolution part just becomes kind of a joke to him. He talks about how it's harder to trick the poor into the machine over the rich because they're so used to abuse and trickery. But he's still catching the rich and feeding them to each other, and the caged beds are part of that contraption. Like I said before, the factory just operating powers different parts. The beds operate off a pressure system from that dumps the rich people into the machine directly. He loves this. The movement of the masses is a casual factor in the extermination of the rich. This is physically what's happening. Maybe he thought a modest proposal was an instruction manual, but it is funny how crazy this all is. It seems like a machine that—
You know what? I can respect the story for literally putting it the rich as a literal plot point. Literally with like no irony.
will keep slaughtering and expanding endlessly, but it does have an endgame. See, the machine is alive and it's Mandus's evil side or something like that. The evil parts of himself went into the orb when he touched it, and it then instructed him on how to change the world. The engineer is the machine, and maybe it had done this before to the Aztecs. Tezcatlipoca was a god of chaos, but also divination, so in this setting, maybe they could physically see their doom. But were they being exploited by a different power? Luckily, before Mandus was fully exploited, he grabbed his dick, looked in the mirror, and called himself a hypocrite. That's what happens directly. He came to his senses, began sabotaging the machine, and then collapsed in his bed, kicking off the game. So after he's fixed the machine, the final stretch is breaking it again as the machine unleashes man-pigs on London.
Mandus, I know you are out here. I own this city. I am this city.
No! This is not what I meant! This is not what I meant at all!
If you call for a gruesome, violent revolution where you live, but can't make eye contact with the delivery driver, I want you to remember this scene. The attack on London does feel apocalyptic and is a high point of the game, but it's still very linear and set-piecey. It's still hard to be in danger unless you're really trying for it. They try to—
The Riddler's last plan is still stupid to me, as if they didn't have the balls to have a villain who had a good point, while also saying he still should be punished for murder. Yeah, the fucking thing with like flooding the city was really weird for what he did before in the story. I still really love the movie and that specific depiction of the Riddler, but like, you know, it's still pretty— for a superhero movie, it's great, but obviously if you know a lot of great stories, you can easily see like the pitfall of where it could have been better.
add more gameplay after this by having you sabotage the machine and avoid a large
Same with
monster.
this game and gameplay parts, because if you played— this is why this game is fucking stupid, because people who played this game appeals primarily to people who played Amnesia, so it's not like even like Dear Esther can catch people off guard because they hear it's an atmospheric, like, cool experience, and it doesn't, like, it obviously doesn't have challenging gameplay, right? So people who are not into gaming will come to Dear Esther, play it, and call it a great fucking video game. And then people who actually play games will play Dear Esther and just say, where the fuck is the gameplay? But with Amnesia, A Machine for Pigs, people who played Amnesia are going to play this fucking game. And what do you think they're gonna say first? It's obvious. Where's the gameplay from Amnesia? Because that's what they experienced before, you know? So them not paying more attention to the gameplay was the stupidest fucking thing. Like, a toddler could see this coming from a mile away. The story could not have carried like this the problem that this game innately was going to have. It's a good movie. The last bit is kind of weak. Yeah, weak story-wise. Incidentally, that bit with the mirror is the part that Mandalore didn't realize was a pun. That bit with the mirror... Oh, okay.
But there's still not much to it. Story-wise, the machine, which is the stone egg, reveals it wants to destroy another egg. It wants to reach the core of the planet and split the atom there and destroy the world in fire. It's better for mankind to just die off rather than suffer. This is the same warped logic that had Mandus kill his sons taken to the extreme. So you descend down to save the world, kill off that part of yourself, and fix your mistakes. Seems like a solid story. It is, but for how good the writing is, how it's told can be weirdly sloppy. The machine's big reveal to you in the end is that Mandus killed his children. The situation with the kids is the easiest plot thread to follow, and if you're remotely paying attention, you'll know fairly early on that Mandus killed them. So it lording this over you and taunting you for it feels very flat since you've likely known this for a while. Also, since Compound X bounces you between worlds, Mandus might teleport around during the end, and it starts getting unclear what's in his mind or real, except for the very end, which is most likely internal. There are so many strange little things brought up or areas that feel like they're missing. Like, some of the streets are attached to the Whitechapel murders, and Mandus mentions that Jack the Ripper might be a man-pig. It could also be that his soul was truly split when his wife died in childbirth, so technically 2 sets of twins are being born. And then that's how the orb latched onto him. It's very unclear. It's interesting to put together or maybe hear the story, but it can also be all over the place, and it doesn't have a really fun or engaging game under it. Which is a shame because there's a ton I do like about the story. The fact that all the horrors Mandus saw were the creations of people. How he did vile things to try and stop it, and maybe he could have if he didn't take it so far. He saw institutions that he thought chewed people up and spat them out, and he made it actually happen. While it does take place in Victorian London and clearly has thoughts on exploitation, I don't see the machine as being a one-to-one political metaphor. Saying I'll make a system that'll fix everything and it creates new problems or makes things worse is a tale as old as time. Very different systems can step on people in similar ways. Mandus's goal of all roads will feed you to the machine was based on what he saw already. It gives me a lot to think about and consider, except ever wanting to play the game again. But I do sometimes think about the last moment playing the game. You're shutting down the machine, which looks like an Aztec temple in the fog, and the engineer explains the horrors to come in the new century, and it's just one of the best monologues in games.
I have stood knee-deep in mud and bone and filled my lungs with mustard gas. I have seen 2 brothers fall. I have lain with holy wars and copulated with the autumnal fallout. I have dug trenches for the refugees. I have murdered dissidents where the ground never thaws and starved the masses into fame. A child's shadow burnt into the brickwork. A house of skulls in the jungle. The innocent Mandus trod and bled and gassed and starved and beaten and murdered and enslaved. This is your coming century. They will eat the Mandus. They will make pigs of you all, and they will bury their snouts into your ribs, and they will eat your hearts.
There are some holes to poke there when it comes to defending the innocent, but
That's metal as fuck, though.
fuck
Yeah.
it, not topping that, we're done. We all make sacrifices, and sometimes it feels like we do rip our own hearts out sometimes. The ironic part is a game about sacrifice sacrificed so much of the game that I have no reason to come back and play it over the Dark Descent, even if the story is more interesting and layered. It could have been one of the universally great horror games, and instead it's a divisive one for very good reason. But even though I didn't like it much, you can still go play it, and not all games have that luxury. If you'd like to learn more about that, especially if you owned The Crew, which Ubisoft shut down recently, and don't live in America, then visit StopKillingGames.com, which is a long shot, but at least it's something.
Okay. There are a couple of things to talk about here. I also like the ending monologue when the machine dies and the Mundus lays next to it. He accidentally creates a new race with the man-pigs who are still left behind, and the game ends with them losing the machine's influence over them. Um, so yeah, they had a great idea for a story, and if they said it in their own way, like Dear Esther, like, right? If they did a walking simulator that had no Amnesia name attached to it, then it could have been one of those games like Dear Esther that is received well, and people who are critical of it have less of a point because you know, this developer doesn't do like games. They do like interactive experiences where you just kind of walk around, right? So like, them doing an Amnesia game was the worst fucking thing that could have happened to this story. If this was like their own independent game, it would have been so much better off, and the Amnesia fucking franchise would be so much better off. It's crazy how fucking bad of a decision this was, actually. That's the first thing. Second thing, speaking of stopkillinggames.com, I completed Nier Automata recently, like for the replayed it after all those years, and it's not as great as a game I once thought, but that's beside the point. There is that gacha game, Nier Reincarnation, right? And it's a gacha game. All gacha games are obviously fucking gambling simulators, so you know. But some of them have great stories or gameplay or both, right? And I heard that Nier Reincarnation has actually a really good fucking follow up. Is a really good follow up story wise to Nier Automata, and I was curious about it. So I decided to download New Reincarnation, and I was looking at my phone this fucking morning, and let me actually show you it. I was I installed the game. Oh no, I think I uninstalled it by now. Yeah, I uninstalled it. Fuck. I installed it to play it, and if you launch it, the game just says this game ended service on I think like April 30th, 2024. That game is fucking gone, and I heard the story was actually good, and that's fucking crazy that we live in a day and age where a game can be just lost forever because it's a live service gacha game. Like, how can you cannot even really like download pirate it, right? Because it's fucking live service. The only kind of preservation you can do at this point is just put all the cutscenes on YouTube, and that's the only thing I can do. I can only like watch it on YouTube now. That's not the fucking same, but yeah, well, what are you gonna do? And yeah, I just had to say it because of the crew situation and the stopkillinggames.com website. It's fucking terrible, you know. I think like companies should legally be like there should be some legality behind if you're gonna shut down a service, or like what Destiny does, right? Destiny like removes content from its game too. I think like they should be legally obligated to like keep that content somewhere, like even an offline version for you to like download and experience that, instead of if it's just being fucking gone forever. That is terrible. That's like the Hogwarts mobile game. They had a story where you could only play it in the moment, and if you missed it at all, that's it. You could never get the story. I think Call of Duty also did that. Parts of Call of Duty stories, like actual fucking storyline in the single player, were made into seasons in Warzone. So you had to play the current season of Warzone to know the context for some of the things happening in single player. That's fucking terrible. We live in one of the worst fucking times, one of the best times to have games, because we have so many like indie games that are so quality. And on the other hand, this is the worst time to be an enjoyer of video games because of shit like that. Like even if a company back in the 2000s made a shovelware that cannot be bought right now, right? You can still get it via obviously pirated copies saved saved on the internet. But with those fucking live services, they're just gone forever. Like, you cannot even pirate that shit. It's so annoying. Blah, blah, blah. The story of the Hogwarts one was that the villain wanted to introduce magic to muggles so they could use science and magic to make everyone's lives better, and it's your job to stop them. I mean, that's just Harry Potter, man. The mages in Harry Potter fucking hate the muggles. They fucking despise them. Like, despite just being a normal person who cannot, throw spells. I hate people who want lifesavers games to be everything. I checked out the Dark Tide reviews for something to laugh at. You wouldn't believe how many people are mad. The game isn't life service, when the devs never said it would be and alluded to the opposite, but people imagine the devs said it was life service, so they rate it poorly. Some people, I think, are a little bit confused as to what life service means, because I am one of those people who previously said I wish Left 4 Dead 2 had an ongoing development like Destiny or Darklight, for example, and that could be taken as me wanting it to be live service, but it's not necessarily what I meant. What I mean is, Left 4 Dead is the perfect example, right? Left 4 Dead started out with a couple of campaigns, and over the time, the developers added more campaigns, more and more content and everything. But you still can pirate that game and play it all offline. So my ideal game would be a game like that gets more content and more content and more content, but it's not a multiplayer only game. So yeah, you can just play it single player, so in case of a server shutdown, there is still game there, even if it's like way worse, right? Because if you make a multiplayer or a co-op game, a single player, it's a worse experience, but you can still fucking play it,
Because I'd rather try to wiggle a little bit if I am going to fall into a processor. That's it for now. Next time there will be less pyramids, I hope.
So yeah, just a long rant about that state of gaming.
So bald. Why am I so pig-like? Any interest in the Terminator RTS game that came out? Well, I'm very interested now because I did not know that existed. There's just so many games coming out now, it's crazy. Not as bad as last year, but man. I don't like this painting.
Sassy horse. So yeah, that's Machine for Pigs. Not great decision. That's, I guess, a way to sum it up. Anything interesting in the comments? I really don't want to talk about pigs for a few weeks. Amnesia on GOG, stopkillinggames.com. In what can only be a thematic masterstroke, the action that ultimately caused our main character to try and undo his wrongs is to squeeze his hog. Moshi Moshi, precious eagle, cactus fruit, help us. Beautiful dialogue, anime of the year. You weren't joking how dark the game was. I'm trying to watch this on my phone and it's just my reflection most of the video. Holy shit. Yeah. Oh hey, Ross is here. I don't want to derail the Amnesia misery, but thanks for the mention. Oh yeah, I forgot, like, Ross from the Cursed Farms is like the, is spearheading like stopkillinggames.com. The more people are able to file complaints, the better the odds we can get agencies' attention on killing games. Figured putting it in a regular video would be the best way to get more eyes on it. Definitely, like, if Mandalore made like a separate video talking about this, it would probably like get more attention, ironically enough. On reflection, Halligan would probably be able to solve the Amnesia series. Briggs would probably be needed for the bunker, admittedly. London, truly horrific. I mean, that's just the best thing you can say about this game. Oh, so moving on, we have Robo Quest review. Yeah, I put in some random videos by Reggie and that Rubik's Raptor fella in here, so I can like have their channels saved for later, so I can scrub through their things. So yeah, next up we will have Robo Quest review. Why haven't you played this? And
Robot.
And you gotta give me a second before. There definitely should be some sort of game archive. I guess it's just called the Pirate Bay. Yup, ironically enough, the pirates have done the most amount of fucking work possible to preserve video games, and it's so ass backwards, man, that companies, like how companies treat their fucking products. It's, and like, it's just mostly video games. Only video games have this fucking problem. Well, there are now shows that are dependent on being kinda in the cloud. So I guess the fucking movie industry slash people who watch like shows, they are getting they feel the sting a little bit too, but like pretty much everything gets a Blu-ray release, so it doesn't matter. It's immortalized in that way. Fucking video games are always getting the worst fucking deal imaginable with the day one patches, the fucking live service bullshit. Just thinking about it gets me mad. But anyway, yeah, give me a second. I will go grab myself a glass of something to drink and we'll get into Robo Quest. Okay, we are back. There are rare cases where something just vanishes a long while. Didn't see Godzilla -1 in theaters. Good luck watching it without pirates now. Yeah, that's true. Godzilla -1 like really had that fucking situation, but it was just like momentarily. I think by now it has gotten its Blu-ray release, right? Or it's gonna get it at some point. So like no biggie, just just if you missed it, you had to wait essentially for the release of the Blu-ray. It's not like it's lost media forever, like some of those fucking games that we'll just never get to play, like Nier Reincarnation or The Crew. Still in limbo. Oh fuck, I thought I heard that it's getting a Blu-ray like a couple of months ago. Maybe I was wrong. That sucks, but that would be... Nah, it's surely gonna get a Blu-ray. I don't believe it for a fucking second it's not gonna get a Blu-ray. But yeah, now the uncertainty and the wait can be annoying. So yeah, Robo Quest. I played a demo of this. Speaking of, I love how Steam is like pushing demos more and more. Like we had that was a year ago or something like that now. There was an entire fest on Steam like dedicated to featuring demos of different upcoming and like new games and whatever. And I remember like I remember it because a bunch of streamers made content about it, like where they tried out a bunch of games, and it was a cool like little moment in time where you could catch streamers playing something like completely out of their completely out of their repertoire, I would say. And yeah, I played Robo Quest like during one of the previous Steam Fests. It featured a demo for this, and it's a pretty cool like little video game. I hope Steam like continues promoting those demos because it's a cool way to find if you vibe with a certain video game. Like Robo Quest definitely looked cool and it feels cool to play, but there was something about its vibe that I was like, I probably shouldn't buy the full release of this, besides the point that I have like a billion games in my backlog that I am trying to get through. You want some real lost media? Look up how long it took Reboot, the early CG TV show, to get a physical release. That one nearly vanished off the face of the earth. Oh yeah, true. I think that at the beginning of this year, that story actually, like, finally had a happy fucking ending where they or is it still ongoing? I think like couple of people tracked down the original tapes or whatever, but now they are looking for a really rare and expensive piece of equipment that can change the format of those files to like record them for, you know, record them and be released on the internet and shit. That's where I last that's the last update I personally saw on that story. I haven't been like really following it, but one of the subreddits that I frequent likes to talk about that because it's the Two Best Friends subreddit, and Wooly from Wooly Versus was really fucking into Reboot, so people like frequently post updates there. Reboot got a DVD release, but it was a poor one. Oh. Huh, so why? So they were like motivated only by the quality to track down the original tapes? Seems like a really a lot of effort to save something that had like a subpar release, but you know, at least it had one. Anyway. Robo Quest review, Why Haven't You Played This, by Bricky. Let's get in there.
They don't eat food, or at least they would if they had today's fantastic sponsor, Factor. Factor is a lot of what I eat nowadays. Genuinely, Factor sends me boxes of food for these sponsorships. I am actually a genuine and subscriber to Factor. In addition,
I wonder how good Factor is actually, and like that other sponsored, that other sponsored like thing that also delivered food. I forget what the fuck it's called.
Smart or even keto, that is also an option. But
I am extremely curious how good do these
and meets what I need in a really easy fashion.
packaged packaged things like actually taste.
And sweets, all that you need is available there at Factor. So go and head to factor75.com or click the link below to use code Bricky50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and free wellness shots for life. 2 free wellness shots from 3 available flavor for
that shit. Okay, like whatever about Factor, whatever else can you say? Fucking wellness shots. Oh my god, get the fuck out of here, man. People will, companies will sell you so much shit you don't need. It's crazy.
Each order while you are an active subscriber. Thank you so much for sponsoring this video, and let's talk about robots and a quest involving them.
Don't take care of your body.
Chuckle nuts.
Don't take care of your body. Instead, drink our fucking chemicals in a can, man. It's gonna take care of you instead of like eating well-balanced diet and going outside to get some vitamin D.
I know you people pretty well, I'd say. I've been making content for almost a decade now, and I think I've grown to understand my audience. Korea. There's also a million of you now, which is... So let me explain to you why I think this video game is everything you've ever wanted. Robo Quest is a combination of Borderlands aesthetic and weaponry, modern Doom gameplay, and the Risk of Rain loop.
Yeah, that's fair.
I've sold you.
That's
it.
fair.
You've already purchased the game, because after saying that sentence, how could you not? You need more convincing? Is the overwhelmingly positive review score not enough?
I wonder what they will call it when people stop falling for wellness shots. Yeah, a tale as old as time, man. They will just rebrand it. They will just rebrand it under something else. Like every time a company gets called out on like misleading branding or naming of something, they just rebrand and do the same shit. It's crazy how little you can do to influence the fucking market around you.
For you? Do you not trust me? Well, fine then. I guess we'll have to talk about everything amazing in Robo Quest. I guess I'll have to make the video. Look at what you've done. That's it. Come here. Robo Quest is a first-person shooter roguelite released on November 7th, 2023 in its 1.0 state by developer Rise Up Studios, published by Starbreeze. It is, as I've described earlier in the video, a combination of Borderlands, Risk of Rain 2, and Doom. The game is relatively simple and extremely lighthearted. You play as a robot, teaming up with a young gal to save humanity against the evil AI Iris. There really isn't a story in Robo Quest. There are fun little data logs here and there, but for the most part, it's just a nice little background, a little bit of filler information for a cute...
That's one of those things that I think rubbed me the wrong way about this game. Like, nowadays, I kinda expect games to have a story that's gonna grip me. Like, the only exception I can think, like, to this rule is Risk of Rain. But Risk of Rain, if you dig deep, if you dig into Risk of Rain's story, it actually has a pretty like cool story, and even if it doesn't, the setting is fucking fantastic. But like Robo Quest doesn't really have that. You're a robot and you're shooting at stuff. It's like even if you think Binding of Isaac, right? Binding of Isaac is this insane fucking story about a child. There are so many interpretations of the story, but the imagery and like the feeling it invokes, right? It's such a vibe. Robo Quest doesn't have any of that. It just has the gameplay, which is good, but can it match any of those games? I don't fucking think so.
And violent time. Like most roguelite style games, it's all about failing and trying again, slowly leveling yourself up more and more with time. Robo Quest is split into 4 acts with a boss at the end of each and multiple branching paths you can take. During each path, you kill enemies and do your best not to get killed yourself. Gather various types of loop upgrades and move through the level one by one until, of course, your untimely death or you beat the final boss.
Hey, want to hear my impression of you in about 3 seconds? 12 seconds later.
And in that case, you go back to the beginning to try it again in a different manner and most likely a harder difficulty. For starters, Robo Quest plays just buttery smooth.
That's
the game
true.
feels
That's
just like the
definitely true.
The modern Doom games you're so familiar with. If you compare the two of them side by side, the similarities are obvious. And it's not the type of similarity.
Even Vermintide knew how to do a story. There's a magic rat doing stuff and you want to kill him. Yes, I mean, you could easily argue Vermintide, not the greatest story, like, it's just like a background thing, right? But the fucking atmosphere and the sights you actually seen made for a great fucking backdrop to all of the cool gameplay. I don't know what this is, but this art style never really grabbed me. See, Bricky compared this game to Borderlands, and Borderlands, I think, Borderlands has a little bit similar. It looks kinda similar from a distance, but the thing is, again, Borderlands has those locations, like that story, the whole Mad Max planet aesthetic, right? There is so much more to it. Like, you cannot just put me in metal corridors and like brown canyons and make the gameplay really good. There has to be something more nowadays in a video game. I would say story and whatchamacallit, story and aesthetics need to be there to support even a great gameplay. I think the most comparable thing to this is Enter the Gungeon, because Enter the Gungeon doesn't have a real story. Okay, it has character stories, so maybe that's not right. But the gimmick is, like, everything is either a bullet or a gun, and that's an aesthetic that's so recognizable, it instantly made that game a fucking classic, you know? Hades has a story and great characters, like... I think Robo Quest just misses like something essential. Sadly,
it feels like a cheap copy. No, this game feels as good as Doom.
Even like I said, even if the gameplay is fucking amazing, the shooting feels so good.
I can rarely ever say. Doom does feel a little bit better because it's made by a massive AAA studio, but just the general movement of the game, firing of the weapons, dodging enemy attacks, and killing enemies outright all feels good. It's difficult to truly express the magnitude of smoothness that this game just feels like. On the smooth scale between sandpaper and League of Legends players' brains, we've somehow gone past Yasuo main. It is that smooth. We hit 1 million subs. I had to make a League of Legends joke. It has all of your general hallmarks too when it comes to gameplay. Like in Robo Quest, you can carry 2 weapons at a time. Now, these weapons do need to be reloaded in a traditional manner. However, swapping your weapons will have the one stowed slowly reload as you use your primary. So while the guns do reload in the normal way, if you constantly swap between the 2 of them, you will have never-ending uptime because there is no overall ammo reserves, just a magazine size. However, there are some really fun perk upgrades that only allow you to have one weapon, but massively supercharges it and leans more into your class. Basically, what I'm saying here is that if you want to be the constant weapon swapping, always firing guy from Doom, that's an option. But if you also want to do something a bit more traditional, utilizing your abilities and simply one really strong weapon, also an option. Strong weapons you are going to need because the entire arsenal of enemy robots coming at you can be dealt with in a lot of ways, but can kill you in many more. Enemies are pretty unique and varied, coming in all kinds of various styles, sizes, and anger levels.
Ooh, that's a nice environment I haven't seen in the demo.
Unique and varied, coming in all kinds of various styles, sizes, and anger levels. The game starts with the simple, cute little bots. The small bot, the field bot, the mine bot. Look at them. It's so small. They're cute. You also
I am kinda surprised. Like, I kinda wanted to see this video to get a grasp if this game like ever is more than what I described. So just like gameplay only basically thing. If it ever like evolves past that, like has something else to grab you with, but it doesn't seem so. And on that note, I am very surprised Bricky actually made a video about this. Like there doesn't seem like there is that much to talk about in this game. Like, it plays great, like the shooting feels real good. I mean,
have some bigger bots. The pawn variant, scout pawn, laser pawn, jet pawn, also fun and simple to deal with. But then things get a bit more advanced, and you have the light fly, the Gatling pod, the shield fly, the Goliath cruiser, and Goliath worm. They're getting more advanced and bigger. But like in all roguelike games, there will be an enemy that you just despise. In Robo Quest, as you're moving through level to level, taking down bots, pawns, and flies, getting XP and collecting scrap, you'll eventually just run into one of these.
Throwing flashbang.
The flash fly absolutely demolishes your screen. The electro fly will shock you and stun you still. And the sniper pod, when it has a bead on you, will basically not miss its shot. And we don't even...
Okay, the sniper I saw, but the flashbang thing I didn't like run into, I think.
The sniper pod, when it has a bead on you...
This reminds me of something, and it's not Borderlands, but I'm blanking on what. See, I know exactly what you mean, because I kinda get that feeling too, but it's kinda so generic that that my brain just glides past it. Could be okay, that game is not generic like that. What is it? 12 or like XIII in Roman numerals? That comic book game.
Will basically not miss its shot.
There is a like a similarly looking game that is multiplayer. I think it's called Loadout. It's a pretty simple shooter, and it looks very like
Beat
this.
on you will basically not miss its shot. And we don't even need to begin talking about the hacking units in this game. Oh God! Oh God! The only enemy that I love is this cute little guy on the railing, because if you kill him, you get a absolute shitload of experience and health. If you see the funny railing guy, kill him quickly before he runs away. Then, of course, as you progress, you'll run into elite enemies. These look like average bots, but with a fancy color scheme and even fancier weapons. Melee, sniper, artillery. One of them also has a flash ability too. That's right, this shit comes in deluxe. Now, in the beginning of the game, you start off in a camp and load into a game on one of the difficulties. In each of the safe rooms between encounters, you get some help from your friends. The repair bot will heal you up, as well as a chest full of weapons that you can use. But eventually, as you go through, you'll fight enemy upon enemy until you are in
Some of the environments even remind me of Overwatch. Like, look at this shit, man. This is totally a place you could imagine like being in Overwatch. It even like has a similar vibe.
Go through, you'll fight enemy upon enemy until you are inevitably killed. But one of Robo Quest's great strength,
Kinda like when and you're consequently talking about Overwatch in the chat too. Kinda like when Overwatch 1 did their PvE. But where you fought robots, or the shooter where it was like an 80s cartoon and there was another corridor shooter I'm blanking on, and like a no build first person Fortnite. Glad I wasn't the only one thinking Overwatch. Overwatch PvE, the like event modes is a great like example of that, because it's kind of fun to do for a while, but in the end, it has nothing to like grab you and keep you there.
Strengths, it's Jesus, that sentence, is how quickly you hop right back into the fray. But during your encounters, you may have gathered wenches. You know, enjoy yourself, friend, for not even a plumber has the chance to lay this much pipe. You'll need a steady supply of wrenches for. These wrenches are used to upgrade your path in the typical roguelite fashion. Simple upgrades like health and survivability are present, but the more interesting ones is adding brand new robots to your safe rooms, such as Smithing Joe, Bizarre Bob, and Chef Paul. These let you purchase new passive upgrades, get specially curated guns, and upgrade your weapons, including the ability to re-roll the affinities on them, which segues us right off a cliff like the inventor of the Segway did into your weapons. There are a lot of them. Maybe not necessarily in overall individual types, even though there are 73 options, but really it's what helps them stand out, and that's their affinities. Remember Borderlands? Borderlands 1, that is, not the out-of-touch YouTuber villains or Kevin Hart as Roland. You know, Roland, the serious character. But remember the selling point of the first game? Insane gun variations. You want a fully automatic grenade launcher that burns people with acid? You got it. You want a shotgun that fires flaming bullets that also explode? Why not?
I thought he's gonna say, like, I remember in Borderlands 1 I had a legendary gun that was a shotgun, but it had a scope and it had like 95 fucking accuracy rating, so it was basically a sniper rifle shotgun. So you could just delete anything you see on screen from any distance you wanted to. That was a fun fucking gun, until it inevitably got outscaled by the enemies like levels, which is, I fucking hate that about Borderlands, that your guns become so useless so fast.
Has the same. For each weapon variety, going from the usual gray to orange, it will have an additional attribute stapled onto it.
Holy fuck, do you hear that bass? Boom, boom, boom. There's a little bit of a fest going around in my city today, and that's why today is not gonna be such a long stream probably. I'm gonna go through this video and the next one because there's going to be a parade and I wanna see it, because they ride like a nice, very whatchamacallit, very creative yeah, platforms or floats or whatever it's called.
Now, these affixes come in 3 different types: base, green, blue, and alt. All weapons have a base affixment, but the number of blue and green ones are based on the weapon's rarity. Base affixes are whatever is common for the weapon. If it's a fire-based gun, the base affix is that it fires fire. If it's a Tesla gun, it fires shock damage and gets recalled every 3 months. But green affixes are more fun things like increased fire rate, damage, impact, reload speed, magazine size, magazine speed, magazine vibe, and horoscope. These then move to your blue affixes, which are similar to green but also include elemental damage. Your Tesla gun might naturally fire shock, but what if your regular double-barreled shotgun wants to fire fire? Or cryo? What if your shotgun had a chance of firing twice? Or a chance of...
Am I fucking crazy for thinking that's just not impressive? Like, that's a system that has been in video games, like, forever at this point. Like, yeah, like, that's just Borderlands, but way scaled back because Borderlands had a fucking rocket launcher that every reload you threw at the enemies and it exploded and things and crazy shit like that.
Firing.
Does your city do what mine does in the summer where there's drum beats going somewhere that can be heard nearly everywhere in the city but you have no idea where the festival is or what's happening? Yeah, I mean that happens a lot here too because there is so many like different celebrations of different shit or just a concert happening somewhere in the city. So usually that there is some drumming or bass that's going across the city and sometimes you're not sure what exactly is where exactly it's coming from, but usually it's the park like right next to us, so we have a pretty good idea what's happening. It's fucking insane how like often concerts happen right outside my window. And the good thing about this building is that there are other buildings in the way kinda, so it's never too loud for me to sleep even with an open window.
A shotgun blast in addition to your shotgun blasts. Or if your heavy machine gun that ramps up to insane fire rates also has increased fire rates. Then you have your alt fire, which can be anything from a shield to a rocket to a melee attack to that funny electric ball from Unreal Tournament 2004. So with all of this, you can look at a gray gun and be relatively disappointed with the stat line. But then you look at the incredibly rare legendary weapons that I have in my entire playtime seen under 5 times and realize that if JC had this, the Romans wouldn't have stood a chance. And if you think I'm even close to done, well, then you must have really bad eyes because the runtime is right down there at the bottom. Idiot. Most roguelites have a fun thing where you might try and try again, but then maybe you just make the perfect build and end up blowing through the game at an insane pace. And on that note, let's talk about classes. There are 6 classes in the game and none are geometry.
I'm a Twitch streamer. They should be teaching me how to hide my profits from the IRS.
Well, they don't function too differently from one another. They do adjust a few aspects such as your special ability, secondary ability, and passive. The initial class, Guardian, goes invulnerable when you activate their ability, and their secondary is a simple watch your tone bash. You also have a passive which gives you increased impact, that makes enemies easier to stun with sustained fire, and increased magazine size. Simple stuff, simple green. But you level up in the game during your runs, and maybe you get the upgrade that gives you unlimited...
Bricky's head would explode if you showed him I Divine Superman, your painkiller. You know what's the problem with Robo Quest? It's like you can either buy Robo Quest, right? Or you can buy Ultra Kill. You can either buy Robo Quest or Borderlands if you haven't played it on a discount, I guess. Like, why this specific game? There are so many like better games kinda like this, like out there.
Ammo when your shield is up, then...
But you know, like, I'm not hating on it. I don't wanna come off as hateful. It's just, it's a fun like indie little shooter you can buy on Steam, and that's about it.
Perhaps you get an upgrade that makes it so that when your shield is up and you kill an enemy, you regen 6% of that shield. Then perhaps, maybe, just possibly, when you have 0 scratch damage, it's kind of like the Bloodborne rally thing, you have increased fire rate and reload speed, which, when invulnerable from Bastion, while Bastion is active, increases weapon damage by 30%, fire rate by 30%, movement speed by 18%. That is one build. Or perhaps you play as the Ranger and you go for a crit build and you have a passive that gives you 2% increased critical damage for each focus point you have, maxing out 16 focus points, therefore 32% crit damage. It does go away if you get hit, but it regenerates rather fast. And then you add critical damage ricochets off into other enemies that can be upgraded to ricocheting into 2 enemies. And then you get a gun with increased critical damage maybe, or maybe even just base critical chance on non-crit spots, then critical damage.
I'm just not wowed by it. Yeah, that's pretty much sums up like my thoughts exactly.
Has a 2% chance for each focus point to do 80% increased damage, but then you take the upgrade for 5 extra base focus points, and then you remember that it's never a war crime the first time. We haven't even gotten to the Commando that constantly ramps up fire rate and movement, the Engineer that summons flying drones, the Genji ripoff, and also literal elemental magician. I cast Lug Nut Leprosy. So when that's all said and done, you end up just rolling up to the first boss on the hardest possible difficulty and kill him like this.
Ready, go!
From there,
I am trying so hard not to be like a negative Nancy because like this game doesn't, like, come on, this game doesn't deserve like to be too hard on it. It's still like probably a better fucking investment than like a newest Call of Duty campaign or something. Fire rate and shield regen does nothing for me when Vermintide 2 has a... See, this is what exactly I wanted to do, the thing you are doing right now. Like, I was about to say, this doesn't seem impressive when compared to Blank. For example, you know, Risk of Rain 2 builds, fucking things you can do in Ultra Kill. Like, I wanted to, like, start stating all of those games, but I'm really like trying to full force stop myself from being too negative, because I don't think this game deserves that.
It's all about getting your build, enjoying the randomness of each run, but still having enough skill in your gameplay to really...
It's just like so weird you would pick this game out of everything you can to make a video about. This seems like a weird pick. I guess Bricky really must have like really fucking liked this game or something.
Make it your own. Every time you beat the final boss on the hardest difficulty, you go to the next hardest, and when you beat that, you get to the next, and so on and so forth until you reach the final boss, which is the cold, painful realization that it is 3 a.m. and you have the morning shift at super conglomerate American company known as Guardian 4. So far, my best S rank on Guardian 4 is this time here. But I love testing myself, trying out new builds, and just keeping it going. This is one of those games where even though I've maxed out all of the progression for the most part, I still find a want to play it because the gameplay is that damn good. I have around 30 hours into this game, and while I did max out the wrench upgrades relatively quickly, there is still tons of collectibles to get that do affect gameplay, like making my weapons cheaper to upgrade, and other fun optional gadgets such as a grappling hook, jetpack, mega jump, and more. Oh, and if you haven't noticed yet, the soundtrack, it hits harder than your dad.
Okay, that's nice. that's some actually great music. Like, I would not expect this game to have a soundtrack like this good, almost kind of vibe. Ooh, this one is really fucking good.
If you like this kind of game, I have no idea why you haven't got
Again, I am this close to bursting out. But you could get Ultra Kill instead, and you know, go off rambling about that. I am really fucking trying hard here, folks.
It was in early access for a bit, but it released into 1.0 late last year, and still I've seen so little marketing for this phenomenal title. It even has co-op. You can bring a rogue buddy into this game, and 2 players.
See, that's a great selling point. Co-op is okay. Co-op is in a majority of those games I mentioned before, but Ultra Kill doesn't have co-op, right? I don't think Ultra Kill has a co-op. So see, there is something this game has over Ultra Kill. That's actual cool feature.
This bitch. My list of complaints are few. My only issues are that I think it's a bit feast or famine on the hardest difficulty. You die a bit too fast for my liking compared to the enemies, and there is a little bit of a take no damage the whole time or instantly die dynamic there.
That's pretty. That's very common in like roguelikes, so I'm not like I wouldn't blame that game for it. Man, you can get so like in Binding of Isaac, you can get fucked up the ass so much by the random generation. It's kinda insane. That game is a true just gambling simulator. Every time you go into a new room you haven't been in, just pull the lever if it's gonna completely fuck your build up, or if it's gonna be amazing.
Game could use a bit more variety in its second half. Each run is rather long, as you can see from my best time here. It's still around half an hour for the whole hog, but the second half doesn't have a unique pathway like the first half does. You're able to navigate different branching areas and go through different doors, but the second half is generally static. I think if they gave us a more dynamic second half, as well as maybe a few more bosses and a couple more classes in a future update or DLC, I will be extremely happy. Also, if they mess around with some late game damage scaling. Hello, future Bricky here. Turns out they released a dev blog back in February 26th. I write scripts pretty far in advance. This showed off a roadmap for 2024, including an update for January that we had already talked about in this video, or at least was already in when I started playing. There's a new update coming out in spring called the Arsenal Update, which includes a ton of new weapons as well as a brand new NPC. They actually show off some of these weapons as the little gifts in their dev blog, including a kind of repeat.
I always love like melee weapons. For some reason, I fucking always love melee weapons in first-person shooters. It just feels so good that you can swing a big fuck-off sword instead of shooting.
A boomer.
And I know this game has a bit of melee weapons. I think it has a like a chainsaw. That rapier is like content that's coming. I don't know if I saw any other melee weapons.
A big charging gauss.
At least the dev seems like a good. Yeah, that it's cool that the game is getting content. You know, there are so many games like. I wish we had roadmaps and like communications with the devs. You know, I'm looking at you, fucking Payday 3, you piece of shit video game. Fuck you, Overkill, you fucks. But you know, I wish some games that I liked had devs like this. So that's fucking cool.
rifle, and there's other stuff coming out too, including a very sleepy robot. So it appears they actually have a pretty good roadmap on their heels coming up, and I'm actually quite excited for what's coming out with the spring one. So that's good. It's always lovely when a game comes out of early access and the updates keep flowing through. Big thumbs up. Bricky approved. My title for this video is sincere. Robo Quest is an amazing game worth the money and worth supporting. It will get you a minimum of 20 hours of
compared to like mainstream games, obviously. Like those buggy fucking releases, $120 special editions, like compared to that, obviously support games like this because it's more worth it in the long
40
run.
hours if you really like the game, and some of you probably will die hard it for twice that amount. The title of this video, Robo Quest Review, why haven't you played this yet? That wasn't me asking you why you weren't playing this game before getting to this point. It's asking you why you aren't now. Check it out. Genuinely, I'll put Steam link in the description. Not sponsored.
Battle Royale, okay, that one got me.
Make that clear. Never spoke to a single developer. Just really like this game. This is another Moonbreaker type thing. I just love this game. It's so much fun, and you should give it a shot. Thank you everyone so much for watching this video. I want to show you something cool. The merchandise site has been massively updated with a totally new facelift. You can still go to orchidate.com, or you can go to brickymerch.com for specifically merchandise that I sell, like this wonderful Crest tee, as well as many other things, including a body pillow. Yes, I sell that now. It's good. I'll talk more about the million subscribers thing. It's crazy, don't get me wrong, but I promised you all Mass Effect trilogy, but I've also got a really busy March going to PAX over in Boston, and then I'm also filming other things to try to get up before I leave, so it's very busy, but we will do Mass Effect, I promise, probably when I get home, so maybe like around April. Okay, great stuff. Thank you so much. I love you. Bye. Kisses. Come on.
That's nice. Mass Effect are fucking great games, especially the, obviously, original trilogy, like what else, Andromeda. Yeah, this good for Bricky for reaching 100 or like 1 million subscribers, by the way. His fucking channel is so good. I love his reviews. I love when he talks about Warhammer stuff, because he's obviously very knowledgeable about that shit. So yeah, not much to say. Like I pretty much said everything during the video, so not much to say here. Except let me take a peek at... Hi, I'm one of the devs. Thanks so much for featuring our game, it's an honor. Many of us at the studio watched your video and enjoyed it a lot. You have a way to introduce and present things in a buttery smooth way, it's impressive. That's definitely true. Lots of love from France. From France! You know what? This has to be like the most normal game made by French people, right? They make fucking insane games. And books. And movies. And TV series. Why are French people so insane? In a good way, by the way. Except for the way when they eat like frogs and shit and snails. Playing as a robot sounds undemocratic. Let me call my democracy officer. I haven't played Robo Quest yet because I've been too busy playing Vampire Survivors per your recommendation. Oh man, Vampire Survivors is crack. I love crack. I mean Vampire Survivors. And then we have Time Shift review by MandaloreGaming. This is probably like the last thingy I'm gonna react to today. Like I said, short little stream, but we're gonna get back into it Speaking of French, are you familiar with a French series called Wakfu? Yup, I seen a little bit of it. It was an MMO that had a TV show to promote it, only to be rebranded as a tie-in to the show when the show was more popular. The show was made to promote the MMO? Are you fucking kidding me? That's crazy. I just seen the show. The show was fucking cool. I never... Okay, I never knew it had a game behind it even. The show was cool, I remember. I keep thinking about like coming back to it and checking it out again. The art style was super interesting, almost anime, but not really. It's so weird. And yeah, I was about to say, yeah, I'm probably gonna start streaming like once a week, like before. Since the throat situation isn't so dire, I'm gonna try to like get back into the swing of things. No promises for now, but yeah. So this one is gonna be. So we're gonna get back up to eventually where I left off. So like 4 to 5 hour streams. It had a really interesting world too, where it was essentially domed what everyone was soldiering on regardless. Yeah, I can't. I remember the characters and kinda what their deals were, but not too. I'm drawing a blank on like what the overall story even was. So anyway, Time Shift review by MandaloreGaming. Does he have it in the description? Yes, it's a game from 2007. Okay, later than I expected. I thought it's from like early 2000s. For some reason. But it's 2007. Still pretty old, obviously, by today's standard. So yeah, let's see what this is. Like I said, I heard about this. Like I seen this game a bunch, like the cover and the name, but never really knew what this was. And immediately the first thing is big Killzone vibes, or like that God of War. But God of War, what the fuck am I talking about? Gears of War. But that's like first person, I think. Here. Or is it just for a cutscene?
Warning. Vital signs unstable. Initiating neural stimuli.
No, it is first person, so yeah, kinda like first person Gears of War vibes. Ooh! Time fuckery mechanics are always welcome. Short review, by the way. Mandalore doesn't do like reviews this short anymore, pretty much.
I always remember Time Shift as being one of the first 7th gen FPS games, but it was about 2 years in until it came out. What's interesting is that one of the first 7th... I always remember Time Shift as being one of the first 7th gen FPS games, but it was about 2 years in until it came out.
Yep, like I said, everybody like kinda remembers Time Shift being... Oh fuck, I kicked the camera. Let me fix that. Like I said, it's kinda crazy that everybody remembers this game kinda as being older than it actually is. they must have been hyping this game for a long as fucking time for us to have that like collective idea in our heads.
Interesting is that it could have been. It had several demos available through 2005 and early 2006. It had the same concepts, and some sections are still near identical, but the demo's reception was mainly bad and Atari was already bleeding money at that point, so they sold it off to Vivendi, who already had an FPS hit on their hands after publishing Fear. However, before they launched the game, they gave the developers another year to overhaul it. And what came next was a huge graphical upgrade and art shift, along with a massive rewrite of the story. The story in particular is pretty nuts, because if you've played Time Shift, you know it has a silent protagonist. I knew this wasn't always the case, but didn't know just how far that went.
I'll just take his lens after I put a bullet in his head.
I play Colonel Swift in the game Time Shift. He is ex-military, he's very smart.
It's worth mentioning this was originally going to be a previous gen game, and the amount of old builds and cut content floating around online and in the game itself is definitely interesting. So the term development hell is appropriate, and to no surprise, the game still has some issues now. For example, the Steam version currently doesn't have the latest patch. The GOG version does, and this was an official patch, not some obscure fan thing, so I'm not sure what happened there. But it means the native Steam version has some more graphical issues and some bugs, which can include the enemy armor system not functioning correctly, making the game way easier. Of course, this all assumes you were actually able to launch it, and this goes for both versions. Luckily, there's a fixed EXE
all games and their wonders
made by a GOG forum user that takes care of that. So that should all get you going, and I'll link it down below. If you want to be extra fancy, the game does support EAX sound, though the game menu itself won't reflect that it's actually on. This gives the game those cool environmental reverb effects, though it might not always make sense, like why your earpiece is doing that.
So we've been digging through all this intel that you hacked. Listen to this. I've always known Krone has been running a huge munitions operation for years, but now we know exactly where this thing is. If you can get inside and take care of business, this could be the tipping point to getting us to Krone.
But let's be real, you're getting this for the weapon effects.
Trouble coming!
And that about covers the essentials, so let's get started.
The entire building has collapsed, and it was on top of a huge underground facility. This might be the cause of our citywide power outage.
Disaster has struck the mysterious research lab. Liver King Dr. Kleiner, also known as Dr. Krone, has stolen the Alpha Suit, a highly advanced quantum device, and attacks Black Hole. It allows only a single user to travel across time. But thanks to generous public funding, there's also the Beta Suit. This one is more militarized, has local time control technology, and comes equipped with Sam, who is an AI who could do everything from warn from dangers to automatically jump out to avoid a paradox. So even though Krone left before you and sabotaged the facility, you play as Time Man, who chases him in the Beta Suit. And yeah, I know that alone already causes a bunch of people to type out plot holes, because those are endless for time travel.
Yeah, I mean, every time travel story you gotta take with a grain of salt. Like, let's be fucking real. Let's have some fun, guys.
Stories, but they later confirmed there are multiple timelines, and the Alpha Suit jumped across that. Or something. Well, wherever you are, it is a very different 1939. Krone has gone back and used his knowledge of future events and science to become the ruler of the world. At least I assume the world. A lot of what happened or what is happening is kept extremely vague, and we'll talk more about why that is soon. But for now, you must help the Resistance defeat Krone, because surely all the details will fall into place later. So let's talk about that visual overhaul. The good news is that the game does look next-gen on a technical level. For back then anyways, but as someone who's more used to FPS games from then just being a port on PC, this one holds up surprisingly more than I thought it would, especially when it comes to shaders, and the lighting is good too. This is one of those things that YouTube compression absolutely massacres, but the rain in particular is a standout.
I mean, this kinda looks fucking good to me for that time.
Krone's Alpha District has a Matrix 3 amount of rain to the point that it feels like you might be able to drown. That's already good for setting that kind of apocalyptic tone, but for a game with time control powers, it's perfect. Since you can temporarily slow, halt, or reverse time, having rain is the perfect encompassing visual. You see that you're controlling the flow of all time and not just stuck in a little bubble. It's not always raining, since sometimes the weather does clear up, or you might go to a different environment out in the country, like the woods or a snowy mountain pass. Though sadly, no snow actually falls there. It ends
Oh,
up being a gray
shame.
and muted game overall, which a lot of shooters from 7th gen were like that, but this
Yep.
is one where it does feel appropriate even if they were clearly drawing from other games for this approach. Especially when you see what the game looked like before, where it's more colorful, cartoony, and the technology looks more clockwork and steampunk inspired. You still get some echoes of the old art style, like there are some propaganda posters that are completely untouched. Because I did look, and I don't think the Crone Samurai are around anymore, because before it seems they wanted to give you a completely alien timeline, and now it's trickier. Because you could say that Crone's world is a retro future. There are big blocky computers, you'll notice Jetsons-styled Roombas around, and just other things that are a 50s or 60s idea of the future. Then you encounter mechs, which seem like they wouldn't be too far out of place in Battletech. Enemy soldiers can be decked out in thick armor, and a lot of them wouldn't look out of place inside of Fear. Then some vehicles and
Yeah.
tech look a little more diesel punk. Big, inefficient, brutal machines that do get the job done. Then, running through all of that, there's a Leonardo da Vinci theme. The skies are filled with airships, and planes have that kind of wing shape you would draw. When you unlock concept art, a good amount uses the Vitruvian Man. So you encounter weird combinations of these things, like what
The rain effect sounds great though. Yeah, for just remembered it and how it handled its paradoxes. I never played Time Shift, so I don't know how they handled theirs. Oh wait, fuck me. I literally read every single part of that message out of order. What the fuck is wrong with me? Funnily enough, even the very first Final Fantasy had time travel. Just remembered it and how it handled its paradoxes. I never played Time Shift, so I don't know how they handle theirs. The rain effect sounds great though. Yeah, the rain effect looked pretty cool. Like you could see the droplets when he stopped time. That's fucking amazing.
looks like a modern jet engine packed into something Da Vinci would draw. But then there are holdovers and remixes from the old version of the game, like your pistol having a digital counter on it. And your main carbine is just the most gun to ever gun. This could
Yeah.
easily be from Killzone or Haze. A lot of guns in the games of this era were affected by what I like to call Halo drift. Because when Bungie made the guns,
But like this results in a very interesting art style. I just wish the game wasn't this was more colorful a little bit, you know.
for Halo, they were scaled for Master Chief and other Spartans. Huge post-human cyborg freaks. When you put those same guns on Marines, they're cartoonishly big, and now Halo has had to stick with it. But even there, they've only tried to tone it down without breaking the style too much. Anyways, if you wondered why guns can be so big on characters in this era, this is mainly why. But beyond that, a lot of character designs wouldn't look out of place in Gears of War, which came out almost exactly a year before. Like, sure, it's an alternate 1939, but everyone looks and talks like it's the mid-2000s.
The switches are in the control room! Hurry, bro! Hurry!
Don't blow
What?
your wig yet, Time Man, we gotta get to the train. This isn't me saying, ooh, you're mixing up art styles. It's more that some ideas and art direction they have is neat, but it clashes a lot with other elements in it, which you could still argue if it's the whole time is all messed up angle. The issue is, all of this is filtered through here's what's popular now, which makes it more generic than it could have been. In the story, you're arriving in what I...
that what it really seems to be. There are some building blocks for a really fucking cool, like, original IP though. What was up with this generation and making everything washed out? The game makes me think of Dark Sector, if you remember that. I don't remember Dark Sector, but I do remember this generation looking like this. It was so fucking annoying, man.
assume is Krone's capital. There are lots of buildings and facilities and giant statues of the man, but when you get there, it's already a bombed-out war zone with an active rebel force in it. There are rotting interiors covered in graffiti, contrasted by highly advanced technology inside of them, which makes sense when it's in Half-Life 2. The Combine only care about resource efficiency and don't give a single shit about aesthetics. So enhancing a decrepit area as little as possible made sense for them, and there were other games that drew from this concept that did work visually and fit inside the story they were telling. This makes no sense for an egomaniac who clearly cares deeply about his image. There are some locations that lean into this more, but precious few compared to what you've seen a million times before. It's a choice that waters everything down into mush. I mean, I'm gonna guess the game being set in 1939 wasn't an accident.
I'm now realizing this is almost fucking... This reminds me of Wolfenstein, almost. It's kind of crazy how much like it takes from other sources, seemingly.
Unless they're all Oz heads. But you don't have the under-equipped rebels now fighting the mysterious faction armed with future weaponry.
There it is. There it is.
Sure, they're losing the fight, but such a massive battle happening in a bombed-out capital isn't a great sign of strength for the regime. Because the story is so thin, you mainly only have these visual cues to go off of. There's no slow unfolding of the world where you're dropped into the Crone regime and you're the spark that ignites the rebellion. There's no build-up to the uprising, no magic hero from the future that turns the tide. Instead, you don't feel that significant, and the world you're in doesn't feel real either. For all of the good ideas that it does have in its art direction, it ends up feeling like a fake game that would play on CSI. And if you've ever played any Half-Life game, it starts coming across as a fever dream. Like, it took me a while to realize I was fighting the police over the military for the first few chapters.
Let's see your papers.
I guess I should have known with the Crone cast.
This so-called opulent uprising was destined to fail from its inception.
Goodbye, Dennis Quaid. Welcome, silent protagonist. So, how about the sound?
Well, that sounds really fucking good.
It's fairly average all around. There are some good punchy...
Seriously? That sounded pretty good to me.
Sound effects, but also a lot of unmodified stock ones as well.
Okay, that one is generic as all hell.
At first, your gun's not slowing down for bullet time seems disappointing, but there's more to it. Because you have games like Fear where everything slows down, including the sound effects. Time Shift will do that for your enemies, but not for your own.
Oh yeah, that does sound kinda weak. At least compared to Fear, but if you're getting compared to Fear, you're always gonna come out looking slightly worse.
This is still fun in its own right, especially since slowing down time speeds you up slightly. So if anything, your version of bullet time is the priority lane. I've got no complaints there. As for the music, Time Shift definitely has some. It's action music and sometimes you notice it. It's competent, but I get nothing from it. I don't know. The mixing on some tracks seems a little harsh, but it doesn't feel worth going into. It's all okay. Let's just move on to the game itself. There's a lot of joy to be found in time control games, especially ones where you can shoot someone in the face. Sometimes it doesn't matter if there's an amazing story or a nothing story. Good mechanics can bridge anyone.
And they got this game, right, for people who smoke or people who drink. Like if you drink beer and you get drunk, or if you smoke weed and you get high, and you just anything, like if you just be getting fucked up. The funny part about it, you can do this right, watch this.
On a base level, Time Shift is a 7th gen FPS. You have the 2-weapon limit, the regenerating health, the helicopter boss, it's all here. But outside of time powers, there's still good stuff worthy of attention. This comes with a big asterisk, but the firefights with enemies can be pretty good for the time. They have solid audio callouts and a nice mix of dynamic reactions to what you're doing, along with some scripted events along the way to make them seem smarter. The actual gunplay doesn't feel amazing, but it is nice having well-animated enemies to fight. They're not to the level where you'd want to do a no time power run like Max Payne or Fear, because no matter what difficulty you play it on, if you find it challenging, that's going to be very front-loaded. When you first get playing, your weapon roster is limited, along with your use of time powers. Even with your suit's armor, most of the enemies are better protected, and you'll usually die quickly in a straight-up fight. This quickly changes when you get manual control of your powers. All of them require suit energy to use, which recharges over time. Your time slow ability also drains your bar the slowest. It also increases your fire rate and your movement speed, along with making your health regenerate faster. So this alone is absurdly strong, but it's also the most familiar to abilities in other games. Stopping time doesn't speed you up any, but it's so powerful that it doesn't need to. It does drain faster than slowing, but it's a few moments to do whatever you want with no retaliation. Also, since time is stopped to the atomic level, you can also walk across water and walk through flames unharmed. Some enemies could have defenses that stopping time completely gets rid of. And there are extra fun touches too, like being able to grab a gun out of an enemy's hands. Stuff like that is fun to play around with and see what you can do, but other than that, the power drain and lack of speed still make it less attractive than just slowing things down. That leaves you with reversing time, which is by far the most interesting power. The energy drain is similar to halting time, but where that is basically slow-mo's slower cousin, here you can be a lot more tactical with it in ways that feel satisfying. Did someone chuck a grenade at you? Fuck you, it never happened. Did you wander into an area where people start shooting at you? Just reverse time to before when they heard you in the first place. You can't undo damage you've already taken because, again, the suit is in its own realm, but it still gives you a kind of superhero shooter feeling that a lot of other games still don't have. If you die, you solved a little game, but you can
that's really fucking cool.
Cheat death before that. I'm sure if this was made today, if you died, Sam would let you watch yourself be auto-returned to the checkpoint. For now, it sure is useful for being sneaky. Being able to get the drop on people by slowing or halting time, and then having a turnaround where you can actually
this bit specifically
let you watch yourself be auto-returned to death before that. I'm sure if this was
this bit specifically reminds me of Prince of Persia so much. Prince of Persia was such a great
today,
fucking
if you died,
game.
Sam would
Sands of Time, to be more precise. I loved it so much.
Let you watch yourself be auto-returned to the checkpoint. For now, it sure is useful for being sneaky. Being able to get the drop on people by slowing or halting time, and then having a turnaround where you can actually reverse time if they get the drop on you, is great. Plus the effect of seeing time unfreeze, and all the chaos you planted springs in an instant. There are flashes of greatness throughout the game, and you're guaranteed to have some cool moments. Finally, you can roll your half-elf katana rogue again and the DM can't stop you. When it's at its best, Time Shift feels like a time control playground, it's more just how often that actually happens. Due to a combination of your time powers and probably reusing levels from the previous gen, there are a lot of narrow spaces you fight in. Especially early on, but even when things open up more, it barely takes advantage of these spaces. You can pass through a large room filled with boxes and cover that feels like it should be a fighting arena and nothing happens in it. Or you go through a giant tank factory and then most of your time is spent fighting on a narrow walkway. When you get to the bottom, there are barely any enemies at all. They introduce enemy time-shifting enemies, which are supposed to be an equal to you, and I'm not sure how they work, but you still mop the floor with them. Fairly early on, you get an explosive bow with a large magazine that one-shots enemies. Whenever I had it, I still tried aiming for the head to make it a little more fun, but it's still a cakewalk machine. Plus, even though each time power is bound to a key, you can also press another button to have Sam select a power for you. This is usually slow-mo in combat, but when it means a physics puzzle, it means there's no guesswork, and even without that, there's not much to guess. And wouldn't you believe it, but the reverse puzzles are also the best ones.
That's so cool! God damn!
There aren't many weapons.
I do like how Prince of Persia is brought back every few years and then forgotten again. The two secrets are okay, but something was missing in the writing. I mean, the fucking reboot remake thing was terrible, I think. The one where you essentially could never die was so fucking lame. And like the new one is something completely different now. I really yearn for a game like Sands of Time again. Like the combat was good. You had such athleticism to your moves. Like the narrative was amazing because of that. He was telling a story, and if you fucked up, he would just go, "Oh, I must have gotten something wrong. Let me tell that again." And like obviously the time reverse powers were also so cool, like to play around with, and like I always loved making small adjustments mid combat. Like if a if jumping over the enemy has gotten me hit, like just reversing to before I took that action and making small adjustments like that for the entire fight to never get hit was so fucking cool.
To take advantage.
Was that the one where it ended with you undoing all your progress because you were forced to resurrect his not girlfriend and as a result free the ultimate evil? I think that's the one, yeah.
The time mechanic, and most are Half-Life derivatives again. The game is only about 5 or 6 hours long, but that is about the time when the gimmick starts getting old, so that works out. The premise for this game and the time powers used properly are fantastic. It's just the incredible lack of substance to it. When it comes to game remakes, this is more the kind of thing I'd want to see. An amazing idea with flawed execution that could really shine. Because I did find lots of little things to appreciate, but as a package, it just leaves your brain immediately. Like the story, which is so bare bones nothing, and ironically repetitive, like helping the rebels escape on a Zeppelin and you leave on a plane, then you blow stuff up and then capture a new Zeppelin and then leave on a plane, taking you back to the first level with the same spider walker, but now you shoot the bad man and you win. The final boss gives you 3 feet of movement space. I promise, you're not missing a story. The most interesting thing in the story is figuring out whether or not gorillas already existed somehow. But this game also had multiplayer, where you could throw a grenade that would affect time in a sphere around it. GameSpy might be dead, but I knew there was a site with instructions for it. I went to check that, and...
What?
I don't know what I'm seeing. I have to throw the ending forward. I'll look through more time-altering games, and hopefully we'll find something better. Right, comrade?
Classic.
All in the early previews. But, yeah, I did...
Oh.
Have I seen the Fallout show? Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna let this one run because I'm curious myself.
I did recently, actually, and I was not sold at all in the early previews, but when I did sit down and watch the show, the only thing I could think was that it was the polar opposite of the Halo show. It kept the tone intact, and yeah, there were some lore things I was iffy about, but the show was entertaining, so I wasn't that bothered by it. I'm not sure if they'll say it's canon going forward, but after Fallout 4, and especially Fallout 76, it's like, who cares? When it comes to a franchise, you can always ignore the next entries you don't like. Did I ever play the Time Splitters games? Yeah, they're incredible. And I'm not sure if it was 1 or 2, but I think one of the games had a full remaster inside of Homefront The Revolution for some reason. I'm not sure of the details, but that might be the most interesting thing about that game. Do Pop-Tarts or Uncrustables count as ravioli as a sandwich, or... Why are we disrupting the natural order? We don't need that there. Get me out of here.
It looked like Mario in the...
Okay, so I haven't watched the Fallout show yet, but I am kind of curious about it because a big Fallout fan. And like people are saying very good things about it. So apparently the show is canon and it does add more to the overall story regarding when and how the bombs dropped. I mean, the stories of Fallout, the overall story of Fallout doesn't matter to me in the slightest. The best part of Fallout is always the personal stories, you know. The personal story of the Courier of Mojave, the personal story of the Vault Dweller from like the first game and his ancestor in the second game. Like those were the, and like your companions and whatever. So but yeah, people are saying the show is good, so I gotta give it a try now. And yeah, that's everything from me for the time being, folks. As Mandalore said, there were some things that had me pause, but they're very minor. The series focuses on 3 personal stories too, which is how you do a show like this, I think, with, you know, Fallout. And yeah, thank you very much for joining me. This has been like a little bit shorter than usual stream, but hopefully, you know, as time goes on, I get back into the swing of things and we go back to like we go back to how it kind of was before the fucking throat cancer, whatever the fuck is eating me, came. So yeah, thank you very much for joining me, and see you as always in the next one.